A federal judge unsealed a 165-page motion pertaining to Donald Trump's January 6th trial. The judge did it on Wednesday, revealing details and co-conspirators connected to the former president's 2020 election subversion scheme. Now, at one point in here, Smith is detailing, it goes into detail about how the Trump campaign employee was informed that a final batch of ballots at a Detroit vote counting center, that it would favor Joe Biden. Find a reason it isn't, the staffer said. Give me options to file litigation. And then when a colleague, let me make sure I want to give this. Give me options to file litigation. That's fraudulent. You guys know that's fraudulent to say that, especially about an election. That's why I'm so shocked that this election is so close, and I'm so shocked that people say that they are undecided. At one point, Smith details how a Trump campaign employee was informed that a final batch of ballots at a Detroit vote counting center would favor Joe Biden. Find a reason it isn't. That's a quote, the staffer said. Give me options to file litigation. When a colleague warned doing so could spark unrest, the staffer replied, make them riot. So this motion from Jack Smith also indicates that the special counsel intends to prove Trump and his allies baselessly invented claims that non-citizens were voting in U.S. elections. Again, baseless claims. I'm telling you guys about this. We've been telling you, do not believe the okie doke. These MAGA people believe it. I don't know if they believe it or they don't care. It's probably a combination of both. File motions to indicate the special counsel intends to prove that Trump and his allies baselessly invented claims that non-citizens were voting in U.S. elections and ignored indications that their theory that dead Americans were casting their votes was flat out wrong. The motion further reveals that the MAGA politicos failed to deliver on their own election fraud theories. They promised to package up, this is a quote, package up evidence of election stealing crime and then never delivered it to its intended recipients, namely the former Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, where two prongs of scheme have resulted in sprawling election conspiracy cases. Okay, so that is where we are with Jack Smith. Now, I want the folks who can explain it better to you are the people who are actually covering this, the legal folks and all of that, who have been uncovering and talking about all of these issues. Let's see where I want to start. Let's start with Chuck Rosenberg on Morning Joe saying, no, let's talk about the evidence. This is Andrew Weissman. This is Andrew Weissman on MSNBC talking about new evidence in the case against Trump. Here it is.
I mean, this is bombshell after bombshell after bombshell.
I actually literally highlighted every single page. It's just all yellow.
Exactly. I mean, it's the kind of thing as you read it, you and I are old enough to remember Watergate. I mean, this is Watergate over and over again. The idea that this is a cancer on the presidency, and with no disrespect at all to the January 6th committee that did an incredible job, what they couldn't get, given that they have far fewer tools than criminal prosecutors, as Tim knows very well, is so much direct evidence where it's conversations with Donald Trump over and over again. And in addition to what you just went through, just so many people telling him there was no fraud that made any difference here. Mike Pence is telling that. His campaign is telling that. Lawyers are telling that over and over again. It is useful to remember the reason this is public is because Judge Chutkan denied Donald Trump's motion that he was making opposing this ever being anything that we could see. He continued to make motions saying no one should ever see this. It was rejected in a written decision by Judge Chutkan today, and she then released this. So that is why we have it over his opposition, and now that we can see it, we know for damn well why it is that he didn't want anyone to see this, in the same way that Richard Nixon didn't want anyone to see those tapes.
Interesting. So here's the thing. They're trying to decide whether the president was acting in official capacity as president of the United States. And that's going to be, some of it, they will probably say yes. Most of it, they will say no, depending on the statement, because he was also a candidate as president of the United States, because it was re-election. It had to do with a campaign. It wasn't as if it was acting state or U.S. official government business. It was acting on behalf of a campaign workers, campaign employees, asking people to give votes. So they're going to try to make a distinction. Well, was he president at the time? Yes. But he's not president acting in an official capacity. Official capacity would be acting on business that has nothing to do with the campaign. And so I think Jack Smith has a really good case here, because he's going to say, this has nothing to do with, he wasn't talking about Iran. He wasn't even talking about Ukraine, which got him impeached. He wasn't even talking about a storm down south. What he's talking about is something that would get him reelected as president of the United States, when he knew that all official evidence pointed in a different direction, that people were telling him, official people, even those in his campaign, and you heard what the a campaign worker said, unless it isn't, give me something to file litigation about. That's not acting in an official capacity, whether he's president or not. Here's Chuck Rosenberg on Morning Joe explaining probably better than I can. Watch.
Rosenberg. So this is 165 pages, as Mika said. There's a lot to sift through, a lot of detail. It's clear that a lot of the testimony is coming directly from Mike Pence, among other people who are around Donald Trump. But it seems to me, and I'll let you walk us through and explain, the core argument here is that Donald Trump was not acting as president. He was acting as a presidential candidate, effectively, when talking to Mike Pence about these things.
There you go.
I think that's exactly right, Willie. The Supreme Court said that certain official conduct is off limits, that a president, any president, Mr. Trump in this case, would be immune from prosecution for official acts. And so the government's brief here, it's styled as a motion for the judge to make determinations about immunity. But the thrust of the government's brief here, Willie, is that Mr. Trump was not acting in an official capacity. He was acting in a private capacity as a candidate, not as a president, but as a candidate trying to secure re-election. And so all of those 165 pages have a similar theme. They lay out a series of acts, of conversations between the president and private officials, for the most part, explaining that the president was willfully blind to the facts that he had lost, that he was urging people to act in fraudulent and dishonest ways, and that he's trying to retain office. All of this is intended to convince the district court judge, the trial judge, Judge Chutkan, that these are all prosecutable acts, that they're not immune. Remember, the Supreme Court had the easy job, Willie. All they had to do was pronounce a rule. Judge Chutkan has the really hard job. She has to implement the rule. And the government is trying to give her a path, a roadmap to implement the rule in a way that they believe means that Mr. Trump still may be prosecuted for all of these unofficial acts as a candidate.
So there you go. That explains it. That he still can be prosecuted for all of these unofficial acts as a candidate. Now, they're still going to have to, the judge is still going to have to rule on it, and what they will probably do is send it back to the Supreme Court. That's what they're probably going to have to do to it. So as you know, it is always, as always with Donald Trump and the MAGA folks, regardless of just how terrible it is, that it is a witch hunt, that everyone is out to get him. Remember, nothing is ever Donald Trump's fault. And I always tell you guys this, really think about it. It's childlike behavior. If you have children, or if you work with children, you know it's never their behavior. What did you, I didn't do it, somebody else did it. There's always an excuse. Nothing is ever Donald Trump's fault. Do you ever notice that? And if you're a MAGA person or a Trump supporter and you're in here, why is nothing ever his fault? Why do you continue to make excuses for anything he does? Well, guess what he's saying? He's saying that it's a witch hunt again and they're out to get him. Here he is responding to it.
I know that Special Counsel Jack Smith had filed court documents calling your actions in the aftermath of the 2020 election, quote, a private criminal effort. Can you respond to that?
He's a deranged person. I call him deranged Jack Smith. He just lost the big documents case. That was the biggest of them all. They said the documents case, and they said that was the toughest of them all. Let me tell you, we just won it. He works for Kamala and he works for Joe. This was a weaponization of government, and that's why it was released 30 days before the election. And it's nothing new in there, by the way, nothing new. They rigged the election. I didn't rig the election. They rigged the election. What they do is they rig the election and then they go around getting people and persecuting people and prosecuting people that did nothing wrong. They rigged the election. These are crooked people. Deranged Jack Smith is a prosecutor who was put there in order to screw up the election for the Republican Party. The people know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. And it's not going to happen.
Oh, my gosh. Come on, guys. There is absolutely no indication at all that the election was stolen. None, zero, zilch, none. 60 courts in the land, 60, with Trump appointed judges. Everyone is always out to get him. Do you guys need to be deprogrammed? Donald Trump is a con man. Donald Trump is a professional liar. And that's who people, a convincing liar? As someone asked in the comments, yeah, he's convincing if you're a mark, if you're part of the MAGA cult. He's convincing to the cult. People actually believe him. People actually believe him. Again, he was not acting in an official capacity as a president when you're trying to get votes. So, I mean, maybe Kamala Harris and Tim Walz should just start lying. They should just start lying, because maybe they would win by lying instead of winning by telling the truth. Or, you know, maybe it would be a guaranteed win if they just started lying like Donald Trump. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you hit the like button. It helps us with the algorithm. And also, we'd love for you to become a subscriber. So hit that button, too. We're live every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 5 p.m. Eastern, so there's plenty of content for you to check out.